Excuse me! Taxi!
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And calling in, I don't know if he's on the phone yet, is Alan Dershowitz, one smart guy, and a good friend and a smart guy.
We love him. And Professor Dershowitz, I can't wait to ask you, what do you think is this gift that Trump is saying? And he's claiming that they have proof that they're dealing with at least somebody of authority in Iran.
They're going to name that the Strait of America.
Oh, yeah. By the way,
maybe the Strait of Trump.
That's the deal.
Yeah,
Some deal.
And somebody must have been listening to us, John, yesterday, because on a network they were talking about
at
it
midnight,
hours after we were, right? So maybe they got a cue. I think they're tuning into Katz and Cosby.
They said Strait of America at midnight.
Yep, Strait of America. We said it at 5:00. Right.
Yep.
So for the record,
Professor Dershowitz have to say.
Yeah, Professor, what do you think?
Giving a gift that involves the Straits of Tehran is just Hormuz is just giving back something that they never should have had in the first place. I mean, they never should have been able to close the straits, and now if they're giving a gift that they're not closing the straits, that's not a gift. That's just a give back. Look, in the end, this war, whatever you call it, a military action, a war, is going to be the most important military activity since World War II if it succeeds. And it doesn't have to succeed completely. If it really results in Iran never, ever, under any circumstances, having a nuclear bomb, this will be the most important military activity actually even before the Second World War, because the Second World War was a failure. They could have prevented 50 million deaths if they had engaged in what President Trump did here. If they had engaged in a preventive war and gone after Nazi Germany in 1935, 1936, before the threat was imminent, before they took over Poland and Czechoslovakia, if they had done that, they would have saved 50 million lives, but nobody would have given them credit for it because nobody would know that they saved all those lives. The same thing is true here. We don't know how many lives will be saved if Iran is not allowed to develop nuclear weapons. Maybe as many as 50 million lives. And President Trump has said unequivocally, if he hadn't bombed in June the nuclear reactor, Iran would already have a bomb, and they would have used it. If that's the case, they would have killed many, many millions of people. So this preventive action may turn out to be the most important life-saving thing in the world, and therefore nobody who believes in humanity ought to be condemning it. It ought to be praised, particularly if it succeeds in preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon.
The question is, though, how can we ever trust Iran? I mean, that's the big question. You understand that obviously all too well, Professor Dershowitz, but how do we know? I mean,
trust.
Right. I mean,
and Trump knows that.
Iran has to give the United States and Israel the ability to go into the earth and to dig up all the nuclear material that they have, to take it away from them, and to then take control over every single nuclear facility, to not a paper agreement, not a verbal agreement, but it has to be action. Physical. It has to be specific. It has to be denying Iran the ability to do what we all know they want to do, and that is develop a nuclear weapon no matter what they say. So it can't be based on a gift or an agreement or a statement. It has to be based on actual actions, going into the underground areas, taking their nuclear material away from them, bringing them out of the country, and then being able to inspect every day for developing nuclear material. That's the only way it can be guaranteed.
And Alan, the other issue is it's the nuclear issue is very important, and you're absolutely correct. But what about the ballistic missiles? What about the drones? These are people who are gearing up for a war. We're going to use the missiles for mostly peaceful purposes?
No, of course not. We know that at least 80 to 90% of their missiles and their launchers have been destroyed. And I think they have to give up all the rest of their missiles and launchers. That is, for there to be an actual resolution of this that's peaceful, something that neither the Secretary of War nor the general in charge apparently want. For that to happen, it has to be a complete surrender of all the rockets, drones, nuclear material. It has to be the functional equivalent of a military total victory of the kind that we achieved over Japan and Germany. Anything short of that will be a failure.
Craig Eaton.
Alan, there also needs to be some kind of an agreement with them that they're going to send a message out to all their agents all around the world that they cannot do anything in the United States or any of these other countries, because everyone's on the sideline just waiting for word to enlist and engage.
No, I think that's right. I think the surrogates have to be muted. The lone wolves have to be quieted. It's going to be very difficult to do, and that's why it was so important to engage in this military action. I have to tell you, history will regard President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu's decision to attack Iran as one of the most peace-provoking, peace-enduring actions of the 21st century, and perhaps going back even into the 20th century. I cannot overestimate how important this preventive action was, and I think history will regard it so, in the same way that history regarded the failure of Great Britain and France to attack Nazi Germany and instead to give them the Munich Agreement and other agreements that simply encouraged aggression. The failure of the 1930s can't be replicated, and I think President Trump understands that, and he's learned that lesson, and he's using preventive warfare, preventive actions to avoid the disaster that befell the world in the 1930s and 1940s.
Yeah, no doubt. And look at all the troops that are coming in. I mean, the USS Tripoli's in theater. The USS Boxer is on its way. It's a peace through strength. Judge Weinberg.
And Alan, there's another issue too, switching geography in our own hemisphere. Look what he's done with respect to Venezuela and Cuba. Yep. And there are reports, there was a recent article in Gatestone about the Chinese and the building up military bases on Cuba, 90 miles off our shore, totally militarizing Cuba against us. So that's another big issue that you have to give
I
Trump
agree
credit
with you.
for.
I think Cuba will fall. I think Cuba will make a deal with the United States. I don't think it has a choice. It's going hungry. And, the other thing that these Democrats are saying is that it's wrong to attack the electric grid or any of these other materials that can be used both for civil and for military purposes. That's the way we won the Second World War. We attacked the military and the industrial bases of Japan and Germany. And it's not a war crime to attack civilian infrastructures that are used to support the military. That's not a war crime. And anybody who tells you it is doesn't understand the concept of what a war crime is and doesn't understand the concept of how you fight a legitimate war by attacking not only the military but the industrial production of a country. That's the way you win wars.
Yeah, no doubt. The question is, with these people, as we've talked about, they are fanatics. You know what what concerns me the most, Professor Dershowitz, is I think about the Japanese and the kamikaze pilots. I mean, they were willing to die at Pearl Harbor.
I think we're in the same position.
I agree, John. I agree. I think we're...
as a matter of fact, if you study the DNA of the Japanese, and I've studied this, and the DNA of the Japanese is similar to the Turkish people.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is a part of history. And
I can only tell you that some of these Democrats are more willing to see Iran win than to see Trump get a victory. This is such an example of Trump derangement syndrome. Nothing Trump does, nothing Netanyahu does can be regarded as correct by these extreme leftists, no matter how much peace is achieved. Even if we get a complete surrender, a complete peace, they'll still oppose it. And that's what the problem is in America today. Everything turns
and they'll
on
help
who
them.
the president
and
is.
If we don't get one citizen, one vote, the foreign companies, the foreign countries are going to help the Democrats win in 28.
Well, I can tell you as a former Democrat, somebody who voted Democrat all my life, and somebody who has not yet joined the Republican Party, I'm still independent, I will work my head off for Republican victory in the midterm elections and the next presidential election, because I am so frightened of what the Democrats can do to this country. When you get people, like the senator from Connecticut, Murphy, the senator from Massachusetts, Warren. These are enemies of America. Now. These are enemies of decency.
And the senator from New Jersey.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I think we're seeing it all across the Democratic Party. We saw today that Newsom apologized for using the term apartheid against Israel. He's, trying desperately to get some Jewish votes, but he's still very much opposed to the Israeli government.
He's got 3 chances, slim and none.
That's 2 chances, John.
No.
0, slim, and none.
Yeah, you
0,
need the
slim,
third.
and none.
You need the third.
Who is it going to be? I mean, the Democrats have to come up with somebody.
Well, they're never going to nominate a Jew from Pennsylvania.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Fetterman, I'm not sure he's in good shape.
He may be their only choice.
And
right?
How about that guy from Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy Bashir, right? Yeah. Governor Bashir. Who knows?
He stopped by and have a cigar with me one second.
Yeah, well, there's less there than meets the eye. He's another Democrat, John, who poses as a moderate, gives you left-wing governance.
Kind of like the governor of Virginia,
and
kind of like Mikey Sherrill.
Listen, they run as moderates and they govern as left-wingers.
What was the other subject you wanted to talk about, John?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch.
Alan, there's a whole bunch of cases.
The governor from Hawaii, he seems like a relatively moderate guy. He's been on television lately because of the geographic issues that are going on there. He seems like a relatively
How about Andrew Cuomo?
Guy.
Yeah, right. Not a shot. What about Kamala Harris? Do you think she's done? You think she's done now?
My bet she's running. Whether she gets any votes, that's another. She's going to run. She's running. Yeah. She's gearing.
Judge, what else you have?
Alan, I had a whole bunch of cases involving the Supreme Court, which I know you know a lot about.
Yeah, give him the one on the migrants.
Okay, so on the migrants, there's a big issue with respect to temporary protective status and the ability of the administration to rescind that status and get those people out. And it seems...
Yeah, they can. I think the Supreme Court will uphold the power of the federal government to control immigration into the country. That's an Article 2 power that the president has to see that the laws be faithfully enforced. And we saw it didn't happen under the Biden administration. It has happened under the Trump administration, and I think the Supreme Court will uphold that. I think the hardest question is going to be a birthright citizenship. And I think ultimately the Supreme Court will say Congress has the power to decide who is within the jurisdiction of the United States. And they can pass a law that says a person that's just born in the United States accidentally, parents are on the way in, the way out, he has no connection to the country, even though he was born here, is not entitled to citizenship because he's not subject to the jurisdiction.
I agree with that. And let me give you another one. Which
one last one. We have to move on.
Okay, Trump administration seems to be getting the power to stop people from putting their toes into American territory and then be given asylum status, and that seems to be. And but remember, that was Trump's policy rescinded by Biden.
Yeah, that started with Cuba when, if you could touch the ground, you could become seek asylum in the United States. I think the executive has the authority to change that, and I suspect they will, and I suspect that will be upheld. I think we're going to see the Supreme Court broadly upholding the Article 2 power of the president to see that the laws are faithfully enforced. That's what the Constitution says, and that's the power I think the president legitimately has. We'll see a bunch of cases this year, but I think most of them will go in favor of Trump.
All right. Well, please keep us posted. We love having you, Professor Dershowitz, always.
Thank you.
Always.
Thank you.